Welcome to the show. And we got none other with us tonight than Doc Polite. Hey, you see how I rhyme with that, Doc?
Yeah, I hear it.
Hey, and let me give a shout out to Sister Wynn. She's not able to join us this evening, and we want to just send her, hugs and everything. Man, our hearts go out to her. She had a loss in the family, but Sister Wynn, we here for you. So Doc, man, what have you been up to, brother?
Oh man, I had a great vacation slash getaway this weekend. Well, 4 days, and it was, man. Listen, it's great when you have good friends. I count my good friends on three fingers.
Oh, three fingers.
Okay, I count them on three fingers, and we went and spent the weekend with some good friends, Jerry and Trisha Dunlap, and they live in Kannapolis,
Where's
uh,
that?
North Carolina.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's where one of the major up there. It's right. It's a suburb of Charlotte. So we were up there in Charlotte, and we got to go to the the country style cook off.
Well, I know
And
you sent me some
man,
pictures. You sent me some pictures,
yeah,
man.
that food was uh it was it was just great. I put it that way. And then something else interesting happened. Um, and I hope she don't mind me sharing this. My wife, she real shy and private, but we went there, and as we were going, she took her rings off and lotioned her hands, and she forgot she had her rings in her lap, right? And I tell you, God is always speaking to us in everything that happens. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got back to our friend's house and stuff, because we were staying in their air. They have an Airbnb, and we were staying in the Airbnb part of their property. And we got back there, and she couldn't find her rings. And we searched everything. We searched in the car and everything. We went outside, looked and stuff. She couldn't find it, and she said, "I bet I dropped them out there at the
So did somebody
racetrack where
find
we
them? Did
were."
somebody find them?
Listen, so we wanted to go back out there that night, but I didn't know if the gates were locked or
Mm-hmm.
if you can get into the facility. So we waited till the next morning, got up, went out there by 8:30, 9 o'clock, and we rode around the parking lot looking. We didn't see anything, and something say, "Get out and walk." As soon as we got out of the car, she saw her rings, and the key
Wow.
thing was her ring.
Yeah.
And you know, we often worry about stuff, and she'd say, she had prayed and God had told her stop worrying. You don't know uh, if it's going to find it. Worrying is not going to determine whether you find it or not. And you have to let worry go sometimes.
You
And
know,
she, we found, it was a miracle that we found her now, because this place is huge.
now it's interesting you talking about losing rings.
Mm,
I haven't seen my college championship football ring in like 2 weeks now.
mm.
And I called a Waffle House, but they said they didn't see it. It might be gone now. I don't
You
know.
talking about that big old rock you have on your hand?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
I try not to think about it because a whole lot of blood, tears, and sweat went into
Hmm.
that championship.
See, now the only ring I take off is this ring right here, which is a army ring. This is my wedding band, and this is my faith band. I don't take them off. Those two I don't take off ever. I don't care. I don't care what I'm doing. They're gonna go through it with me, because and this is something that I have told my wife. Stop taking your wedding ring off. You got to give your body time to keep it on, to get used to it. She just doesn't like, putting stuff all over her hands and it going to ring. But I told her, listen, I don't care, because my thing is, when you take rings, make it a habit to take rings off and on, you tend to lose them.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And man, let's stop talking about rings because now you're making me, yeah, now you're making me miss it. But
Yeah.
Doc,
So
so
you
you
know that's what we did this weekend. You know, we just relaxed with them and
had good fellowship.
oh yeah, very good fellowship. Man,
Hey, Doc,
they
Doc, let me
two of
ask
the
you.
sweetest people.
Let me ask you this, man. So you were in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I saw the pictures of the event that you went to. But Doc, could you feel a
Man,
different
you know,
cultural
yeah,
perspective?
and I'm glad you used the word culture because it's definitely culture. And you know, people always talk about black culture as if it's monolithic. It's not. These people were down home, friendly folks. We didn't meet any strangers there. Everybody that we
Never
spoke
met
to,
a
we
stranger.
ended up having a conversation with. And that's just who those people are. You know, the minute they see you, you're a friend or family. That's how they're gonna treat you.
Man,
And it's very different from here in Florida in a lot of ways. And it was just, man, it was so relaxing, boy.
but Doc,
And
I'm glad you talked about the fact that culture is not monolithic, especially when you talk
yeah,
about black folk, because you go to different places and you can immediately feel the different cultural shift. You go to New
yeah.
York,
I
hey,
didn't I didn't down here you kind of have to look around and see who all there. That's why we ask who all over there.
yeah,
Because if certain people there, we know it can be some shenanigans,
yeah, yeah.
and we're likely not to go if it's going to be shenanigans.
But
But
Doc,
I didn't feel this
you didn't feel
when
it,
we
but
went there.
it sounded like, man, it was a relief for you to basically you and your wife get away.
Yeah, yeah. We full time caregivers now, so that takes a lot. And so we wanted to get this out the way. And this summer we plan to go uh to Paris. I just got to see what your boy gonna do.
Who you
Uh,
talking about, Doc?
Donald Trump.
Oh, listen to you.
Yeah, because going out the country and trying to come back, boy, right now might not be a smart move.
Well, man, hey, I know you're gonna take that wife away, and y'all gonna have a good time, man. And hey, just let your hair down. But Doc, man, I want to make sure our audience know you're listening to the sit down. The sit down is intended to address community-based issues, to bring in guests so that if they're providing services in their community, they can tell you what they're doing, how you can access it, but also we want to have conversation and the kind of conversation that can help and remedy issues, whether it's social issues, whether it's private issues. The sit down is here to talk about any and everything that's relevant that you can access from a community
and
based
and
standpoint.
and all of the partners that are involved in the process of providing that community service. Now,
You're right.
I got a pet peeve, and I told you today I'm going to talk about it,
What's that
and
pet peeve, Doc?
that's local government,
Man,
local
hey, you know
government,
what? Before we
and
dive into the local government piece, Doc, let's take that quick commercial break. And boy, when you say pet peeve, I know exactly where you're about to go. So let's get everybody prepared for the sit down, and we're gonna have a conversation right after this commercial break.
Are you looking for a student report card solution that delivers definitive data on progress and areas of need? Introducing grades, behavior, and attendance, known as GBA, powered by CPAS Technologies, the game-changing tool that brings precision to student performance tracking. CPAS isn't just a storage system, it's an intelligent database that organizes, computes, and analyzes student performance data. With pinpoint accuracy, it tracks grades, behavior trends, and attendance records, developing program and individual client chart reports with automated calculations. Whether you need a comprehensive progress overview or want to pinpoint specific areas for improvement, GBA technology transforms raw data into actionable insights. No more manual tracking, no more guesswork, just clear, definitive student performance metrics. CPAS provides a scalable, cost-effective solution tailored to your needs. One key feature of GBA is its ability to capture and log volunteer hours, enabling students, mentors, and parents to track volunteer activities, which can contribute to fulfilling Bright Futures scholarship requirements. Take the next step in accurate student performance tracking. Contact us today to get started with CPAS and GBA technology, because precision matters when it comes to progress.
Hey,
See, now
Doc,
that's
you
key.
sit down. You like that, Doc?
Yeah, and it talks about efficiency, so that match perfectly with what we're gonna talk about.
And, you know, we got to give credit too, man. First and foremost, man, to a person who, man, has been in the field for years, and I take no credit for GBA.
Yeah.
We were just able to develop the technology, but man, got to give hats off to Dr. Randy Nelson, man, Randy B. Nelson. While everybody was walking around talking about grade point average, he was talking about with as many of the issues that we have to address from a community-based perspective, we got to deal with grades, behavior, and attendance. And when you say attendance, you got to parse that, because what the discussion is really about is absenteeism.
Mm-hmm.
If kids are not in school, then
They
there's a
can't
problem.
learn.
They can't learn. And then when you talk about behaviors, if your behavior is not where it needs to be, you still can't do what, Doc?
Learn.
You can't learn. So we got to take our hats off to.
Isn't it interesting that we have evolved educational wise to the point where the lowest performing student in the classroom is often the dominant personality that controls the environment?
You're absolutely correct, but Doc, think about this as well. Think about, and it's been years since, you know, Florida legislature passed, you know, small class size initiatives. But think about if you have a student that's in a class that behaviorally is disruptive, it's not a conducive environment, man, for a teacher to teach other students who want to learn, for them to learn.
Well, again, you have one affecting the other 20.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
And he or she becomes more important to focus on managing their behavior and everything else that comes along with it, to the detriment of those 20 other students.
You're absolutely right. But then, you know, GBA, and I'm going to say it again, grade, behavior, and attendance. When you look at GBA, and if you're a program or if you're just a parent and you want to be able to track your kids' grades, behavior, and attendance, it's an easy technology to use. You have to subscribe to it. But I think based on where Dr. Nelson and I have been trying to take this, for parents, particularly parents that are in, you know, high-risk communities, things of that nature, man, I would strongly advise, and more than likely, and I'll say this, and I haven't talked to Dr. Nelson yet, but this is something that we would do pro bono for parents in those communities so that they can have a tool. If you see little Johnny behavior is not where it needs to be, then as a parent, you work on that behavior, because that behavior can also impact those grades as well.
But, you know, it's interesting because out of all the bureaucracies, the education department is one of the biggest ones with problems. They constantly shoot themselves in the foot. You know, they're constantly making up new rules that make no sense. They put performance measures out that are not realistic, nor are they beneficial or prove anything.
But and I'm glad you brought that up, though, Doc. And I don't want to get, I guess, department or government entities intertwined into when we're talking about GBA.
Yeah.
Only because if you're a program or you're a parent and you want to gauge your kids' performance, at the end of the day, this is a tool for you. Government is out of the picture. Government can do education. Department of Education can do what it wants. But at the end of the day, when little Johnny come home and he been clowning in school, now you have a tool from that grading period to say, hey, look, here's how we're gonna handle this. But it takes more than just having that conversation with little Johnny.
So,
You as the
so,
parent need to
but,
go to
but,
the school and have a
but
conversation.
now, I like to connect the dots. And so little Johnny got problems. What are the cause of those problems? What's going on that Johnny is having a problem with attending school, that is having problems with his behavior in school and his grades? He's underperforming. There is always a catalyst. There's always a catalyst or underlying cause for that type of stuff. And government, again, is at hand here because they've structured everything to be monolithic. If you go to the school system now, especially when they're little kids, it almost looks like they would. Uh, it's almost ran as if they ran a prison. Stand on the line, okay? Don't talk. Go here, go there. You basically have the same concept of movement and control that you have in prisons for
Well,
little
Doc, let me,
kids.
Doc,
And that's not how children operate.
let me go here with you, because I mean I'm liking this conversation, and you know how you and I do.
Yeah.
What our good friend Greg Jackson says: iron sharpens iron.
Yep.
Here's something that Doc. Here's a position that I would take. There are some things that I do like that's being introduced across the board. Um, and man, I'd say it because I know we're gonna get into a conversation in a few minutes here about what do they call it? What is it? Determinants.
Yeah.
Development determinants. But here's some things I do like, Doc, that are worth having a conversation about, and that is one of the policies that the legislature is looking at right now, as it relates to no cell phones when you're in school. No, you can't use your cell. You can have it, but it can't be out, can't be open. You can't use it.
But shouldn't that be common sense?
Well, when you say common sense, though, Doc, when you have schools, man, that I mean, come on, we're talking about children. When you say common sense, that policy should be in place because now that it's a policy, it's enforceable.
Schools shouldn't. I don't care what the parents say. Schools should never have allowed cell phones at any level. At
But,
any level.
but Doc, you know it does take time for government to catch up to the
But why is
reality
that?
of the real world.
Why is that? Yeah, people often compare it to a 200-mile long ship.
Ship,
You
you're
ain't gonna
right.
just turn
It
turn it around.
It's not
It's
gonna
gonna
turn
take
on a dime.
it's gonna
You're
take a
right.
long time to turn a 200-mile long ship around. But I'm exaggerating that for a point. But the thing is, getting back to government and determinants, as you say, we have to look at what are we getting for our hard-earned money. It doesn't measure up to what is effective. Is it common sense? Is it a thing that serves well? We have to look at all of those factors. And in many communities, it starts at the local government. So that's why I'm gonna pick on them
So Doc,
because
when you say we have to look at it, think about this. I mean, from an organizational standpoint, community base wise, you got homeowners associations that meet on a regular basis. But Doc, I dare to say that when homeowners associations are meeting, because I'm looking at organized meetings, organizations where you have people come together and they're talking about issues, and of course, this, the lack of government accountability, if you would, or what's called adverse government determinant, that folk aren't getting together and there's, well, HOAs might be doing it, but aside from HOAs, what are some of the other organized civic groups doing as it relates to, yeah, we may get together and talk about crime in communities, may get together and talk about homelessness in communities, food pantries, things of that nature. But Doc, all of those different things, I'm discovering, I'm gonna just say this, I'm discovering that there is a major adverse government determinant that nobody's ever even talking about, and that is, and Brother Armando came in and gave us a good definition of determinant. And Doc, do you
Mondo,
recall
what's
what
that definition? He got a mic in there.
I don't know. I don't think he has a mic in there.
Oh.
But that definition that he gave us, determinant, a factor which decisively affects the nature or outcome of something. And, you know, government does impact the outcomes, or they could affect the outcomes. But that's why we got to be a little bit more, I don't know, man, diligent, if you would.
Well, they definitely do. Think about the rules and regulations. I got a good one because I dealt with this. Remember when I had that flip house I was working on?
Yeah, yeah.
So I went to the state inspectors, housing inspectors website. You know, they send out inspectors when you're building or renovating a house. And I could not get any clarity. I went to like 3 different people. I couldn't get clarity on whether or not I needed to change out the electrical system in that house. Okay. And now I worked on the house for 6 months. And in that whole time, I couldn't get a clear answer. I would go to one entity at the local level, they tell me one thing. I go at the county level, they tell me one thing. And I reached out at the state level. They told me something entirely different than the county and the city.
So Doc, let me ask you this. While you were shuffling around, because I remember you was an investor.
Yeah.
And with that, Doc, time is what?
Money.
And so did that impact you financially with them not being able to give you a decision?
Let me put, and you know, I've talked to you privately about that. That decision slowed me down so much that it impacted me upwards between $80,000 and $100,000.
Wow.
Because of where it put me in the market. Real estate is not for the faint of heart at all. So, you know, in that particular scenario, it was a negative net for me. I mean, I broke even, but on paper I broke even.
You didn't
but
get into it to break even though.
yeah, exactly. Because I would have used that seed money for my next project, but because that window closed and the price of the housing decreased, I couldn't realize that gain.
Man.
So you have to, you know, people don't understand how important it is to be able to move quickly and know information, because not knowing can cost you money. And in that instance, because of me trying to figure it out, because remember, I had to, at the last minute, I had to spend $8,000 to change out the whole electrical. And that's not a simple thing to do. I had to change out the box on the wall and the entire wiring. And
So Doc, let me ask you this. Would you attribute that to government bureaucracy?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, you know, okay, you run a company. You have what's called an SOP. For y'all that don't know that acronym, it's Standard Operating Procedure. It's the guidelines, and it outlines what the performance measures are, what positions are, and everything that has to do with operating your company and how it should operate. If you're a nurse at Rod's company, you got to operate this way. If you're a home care worker, you got to operate this way. If you're a doctor attached or another entity that's performing medical procedures, you got to operate this way. Okay? It's not do it how you feel when you
You're
get
right.
in the field. You do it according to the SOP, standard operating procedures of that entity. And I know somebody, I ain't gonna say no name, but they went to Orange County and asked them for some operating procedures for how they deal with vendors. And Orange County like, we don't have that. Why are you as a government entity not able to offer vendors a expected way that you operate when interfacing with them? Why is that not there? See, so what you have is this, and this is what plagues and creates bureaucracy. Middle management. Middle management has to make up a justification for its existence, and oftentimes you got people sitting in cubicles who are thinking up stuff so that they can seem productive in their jobs. Okay, and so this month they changed the rule. Next month they go back and they change it back.
So Doc, I gotta pause you right here because before the pre-show, you and I was doing our homework, doing our research,
Mm-hmm.
and you just said the word that we focused on during the pre-show, and that was bureaucracy.
Right.
And we dove into what it is and the fact
Well,
that
yeah, I get it. Let's go into our teaching phase.
okay, okay.
Me and Rod gonna teach y'all something right now.
Hey, for
Okay.
those of you, and let me just go ahead and say this stuff. For those of you who are tuned in to the sit down, this segment is about adverse government determinant. I'm sorry. And for
And
those of
see,
you who have been impacted by bureaucracy and things of that nature, and it could be on an assortment of levels. You could be providing social services and just getting stalemated by preventing you from being able to provide your services. We don't know, but if you want to chime in, that phone number is 407 921 6195. Once again, that phone number is 407 921 6195. But Doc, go ahead, man. Take us to school.
okay, I'm gonna walk through 10 key reasons why bureaucracy in local government is inefficient. Number one, slow decision making, and everybody can tell you that that is absolutely true, almost to the literal every government agency. Okay, slow decision making, um, bu- bureaucracy processes often require multiple layers of approval, making decision making slow and cumbersome. This delays response to community needs and stifles innovation. You need a traffic light. What they have to do? They got to do
A
a
study?
study. Okay. Now you've had 200 wrecks in the last 3 years at that intersection.
But Doc, when you already should you? I'm gonna use the word should you already have that data?
Exactly. Something, there's something that that's happening in that intersection that's um, causing these accidents.
And you should be able to get that data from law
Right.
enforcement because law enforcement
Right.
is responding to traffic offenses.
Right. So you go there, you get the reports, you examine them, and you find the aggregate reason. What's the most common reason for that?
The most common reason for what? Say that again.
For,
Doc?
for it's the aggregate reason is the most central or most obvious cause of those accidents in that intersection.
Either
Could be poor
either
lighting.
speed or doesn't have a stop sign. I
Right.
know when I was
Right.
commissioner, we had a situation where there was no stop sign at a major intersection, and you had numerous accidents that took place there.
Right. And that kind of stuff is maddening when it takes 2 years. It took you 2 years to decide that it needs a stop sign there.
And I know some folk that are watching may be saying, hey, look, you don't want to rush the judgment and do something that is not necessary or unneeded But here's the other side of that coin, and you're absolutely correct. I'm not going to take that away. But if is it going to take 2 years to do the study? But those conditions exist for 10 years already. So
Rod, how often have you watched a road construction crew out there, and it's four guys watching one guy dig a hole?
I mean, we've all seen that, man. Yeah. Hey, Doc, I'm gonna get you off of that, man. And I'm gonna get you to number two, excessive paperwork, which is one of my pet peeves.
Yep, a heavy reliance on paperwork and documentation for processes such as approvals, permits, applications leads to inefficiencies, as it consumes time and resources that could be better spent on more impactful tasks.
Is that what people would refer to as red tape, Doc?
Yeah, that's what you run into at the DMV,
Okay.
or to get your license and your tags and that kind of stuff. The
Doc,
signature doesn't match.
but Doc, here's one that you, myself, and a number of folk that we've had on the show, and we haven't attributed this directly to government, but here's one that we talk about all the time: lack of accountability.
Yep. And you know, and not only that, but we build in problems. I remember I had to go to the the elections office here in Lake County because they told me the signature on my voter's registration did not match the signature on my ID. So I went down there, and the lady was saying, "See, your signatures don't match." I say, are you
A signature, a
uh,
handwriting expert.
yeah, yeah." I asked her, I say, "Are you a handwriting analyst?" She's like, "No." I said, "So how you know? What level of expertise do you possess that allows you to determine that when other people go to years of training to determine that? But here you is, Sally Sue, down in the elections office. You're trying to be a punch above your weight. This ain't your area of expertise." See, it's stuff like that. People implying or taking on roles that they're not even qualified for. So they're making work.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, and Doc, again, as we have this conversation, you and I, we're very cognizant of what I would refer to as, yeah, we're not talking about a knee-jerk reaction to all the different requests that take place, but we are talking about taking some serious consideration in how do you move from A to B, and within a timeline that's conducive for all involved.
See, and that speaks to number three, lack of accountability. With many departments and individuals involved in decision-making processes, accountability has become diluted. You can get a permit, the part of a permit, signed at one department, go on to the next, and they say, no, they fill that out wrong. You need to go back to them and redo this form. This often leads to lack of responsibility for inefficiencies, mistakes, and failures. So what should have took me a couple of hours down to City Hall has taken me all day.
All day, I was just about to say a few days.
Yeah. Number four, rigid structures. Bureaucratic systems are typically highly structured and resistant to change. This rigidity makes it difficult for local governments to adapt quickly to new challenges or improved processes leading to stagnation. Now, one thing I do love about Doge and Donald Trump, what he's trying to do, he's actually addressing the bureaucracy that we don't need. A lot of those jobs are just, they are I'd say a lot of them are mediocre jobs held by people who are mediocre. Well, I know you work for the government, and I can't speak on your experience, but from mine, I can tell you now that is absolutely true in a lot of ways.
And Doc, here's something that since you bring up Doge,
Mm-hmm.
I know we've seen what the talking heads have continued to say about, and please let me say first and foremost, man, never gonna applaud or be happy about anybody losing their livelihood. Never, never. But I think that there's one thing that we can agree upon is that government is growing at an exponential rate. And Doc, I can't think in my lifetime that I've ever seen government constrict.
I remember a friend of mine named Rod Love told me, he say, no matter what the economic situation is, government always seems to expand itself.
You're
And I had
absolutely
never thought about that, and you are absolutely right. I don't care what kind of market is taking place where we are in the economy. Government seems to always continue to expand itself.
and think about it, Doc. We saw, I mean, COVID, and we've seen when economies are not the best. We've seen when businesses have had to tighten their belt. We've seen when businesses had to lay off or reduce the work hours of individuals. But here's something else that we've also seen too. We've seen businesses close their shops and have to walk away because the marketplace no longer supported them in some fashion or another so that the margins that they were making were enough to keep them afloat. But what we continue to see and have seen is government continue to grow. But then, Doc, you know how government grows at a time when the market is constricting. You got to look at taxes.
Right.
Right now, the big topic, and I don't want to slow us up, Doc, on this, but I got to, kind of insert this. Right now, there's discussion before the Florida legislature regarding the possible elimination of property taxes.
Yeah.
I know local government is looking at that and saying, well, how are we going to be able to provide services? How are we going to be able to exist? I mean,
A lot
I
of the
don't,
services that they provide are bureaucratic. It's not necessary.
well, one of the things, Doc, and I mean, we don't know where it's going to go in the legislature, but one of the things that local government need to be having a conversation about right now, and that is if this discussion is
I don't know if you're still there or what's going on. Seems like the system froze here. So I'm going to keep on going with the information that we have on here. And maybe Rod and them will come back up. Um, Number 6, limited transparency. In many bureaucratic systems, processes and decisions are not easily visible to the public or stakeholders. This lack of transparency can breed mistrust and hinder efficient problem solving. And the thing about this is that it's absolutely true because you have people that you elect who are, yes, sir. Oh, okay. It knocked y'all off the air? Okay. So, okay. Oh, oh, wow. So the whole building. Okay. So, let me wrap up the show and I'll call you back and we'll troubleshoot. So, okay, they were in the station, y'all, and they had a power surge that shut down the whole building. So, but anyway, we as a community need to begin to speak up about how our tax money is spent. It's not their money; it's our money. We need to have a real conversation with our elected leaders, and then we need to start when they don't respond. We need to replace them with those that will, because we can't continue to have this this attitude that, uh, City Hall is going to do what it wants. No, make City Hall accountable. What a lot of people don't understand, it's the bureaucrats in the government who are the problem. Those people you don't elect. They are making decisions and determinations in departments that you never elected them to do. Because what happens is they may pass a law, but that bureaucrat is sitting back there and he's going to determine what are the bones of that law. What are the rules to govern that? And we didn't elect them to do that. This is why for me, I don't believe that government should have, at the leadership level, should have career leaders. I think what needs to happen is a lot of times they can only work in a position for so long. And I get it. We're talking about expertise, but expertise is not a reason to continue to hold on to ineffectiveness, because ineffectiveness is always going to cost you money, time, or some tangible thing that would benefit you much better if it was managed much better. So this Dr. Polite for the sit down. We will see you guys on the next show. Tune in and watch the Let's Talk Nation coming up with Rod Love and Greg Jackson. And y'all have a wonderful week, and we'll see